In this world of relentless discipline lived Cleonike, a 25-year-old Spartan woman. Unlike women in other Greek cities, she had grown strong through years of training. Spartan women were expected to run, wrestle, and fight, not simply to bear children but to raise warriors. Strength was survival, and honor was her shield. Yet even in Sparta, shadows of fear could slip into the heart. And for Cleonike, that shadow struck at the wrong moment. It began on a morning drill near the training fields outside the city walls. The Spartan hoplites, clad in crimson cloaks, practiced maneuvers. Women, too, often joined these exercises to sharpen their endurance, for in Sparta everyone was bound to the warlike spirit. Cleonike was there, spear in hand, alongside other women. But when a mock skirmish broke into sudden chaos, dust rising, shields clashing, voices shouting commands, her heart wavered. An advancing soldier slammed his shield against hers with a force that rattled her bones. Instead of pressing forward, her feet faltered. Fear coursed through her veins. She stumbled backward, dropped her spear, and turned away for a moment too long. In Sparta, even hesitation was betrayal. The drill ended, but her shame had only begun. Whispers followed her through the streets. She turned her back. In a city where mothers told their sons, "Return with your shield or on it," Cleonike's moment of weakness was a wound to the Spartan soul. By evening, word had reached the council. At dawn the next day, a crowd gathered in the agora, the public square of Sparta. Warriors, mothers, elders, and children stood shoulder to shoulder. Punishments in Sparta were not hidden, they were lessons carved into flesh. Cleonike was brought forward, her face pale but defiant. The leader presiding was Damon, a grizzled polemarch, his body marked with scars of decades in battle. His voice carried like iron through the crowd. "Sparta does not forgive cowardice," Damon declared. "It is not the body that betrays. It is fear. And fear is disease." The murmurs of the crowd fell silent. All eyes were on Cleonike. Damon gestured for her to speak. With trembling lips, she tried to defend herself. I lost my footing. The dust blinded me. I did not mean to flee." But the excuses sounded hollow in the open air. The crowd, hardened by years of discipline, looked on with cold disapproval. In their minds, her hesitation could have cost lives if it had been a real battle. Damon raised his hand. "Enough. Words cannot cleanse what actions have stained. You failed to stand. You turned your back. For this, you shall bear the mark of shame upon your flesh." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Damon's voice thundered, 10 lashes. Not for pain, but for honor. Let all who stand here remember, better to bleed from the whip than to live with cowardice. 2 guards led Cleonike to the center of the square. A post stood ready, scarred from countless punishments before hers. She clenched her fists as her wrists were bound. Her crimson dress, the color of Sparta, hung heavily on her frame, as if mocking the courage she had failed to show. The executioner stepped forward, holding a whip of leather cords hardened by age and use. The crowd fell into a silence so deep that one could hear the rustling of the olive trees in the distance. The first lash fell. The sound cracked like thunder. A gasp rippled through the assembly. Cleonike's body jerked, but she bit her lip until it bled, refusing to cry out. The second lash tore at her back. Pain radiated like fire, but she steadied herself against the post. By the third, her knees weakened. By the fifth, her crimson dress darkened with streaks of blood. Mothers held their sons tighter, whispering, "Learn from this. Never falter." Each strike was not just punishment, it was a sermon of steel, spoken through the whip. Damon's gaze never wavered, his face carved from stone. When the 10th lash fell, Cleonike collapsed to her knees. Her breath ragged, sweat and blood mingling. Yet through the pain, she forced herself upright. She would not crawl. The crowd watched as she was unbound, her back marked with 10 stripes of shame. She staggered to her feet, Her pride shattered but her resolve ignited. For in that moment, Cleonike understood the heart of Sparta's cruelty. The lash was not meant to break her body, but to forge her spirit. The people turned away, satisfied that justice had been done. Children whispered of her disgrace. Warriors muttered that she was fortunate not to be exiled. Yet in her own heart, a fire smoldered. "I will not be remembered as the woman who fled," she vowed silently. "I will rise again, stronger, fearless." From that day, Cleonike trained harder than before. Every scar on her back burned as a reminder that fear was a chain, and she had broken once. She swore it would never happen again. In Sparta, honor was life. To falter was to invite the lash. To flee was to die twice, once in flesh, and once in spirit. And so Cleonike carried her scars not as wounds, but as an oath, that cowardice would never again claim her soul.